All right, welcome to the Amato Report. Right now, I'm joined by a big guest who's certainly in the news. He is Steve Hilton, the former talk show host over at Fox News of the Revolution, currently candidate for governor here in the state of California. What might surprise a lot of our viewers, particularly those of you outside of California, is that California is not a does not have a two-party primary. In other words, it's the top two vote getters that move on to the general election. Gavin Newsom is not up for re-election. He has hit his term limit. And the recent polls that I have seen, there may be something more recent, but I've seen the recent polls going back to August by Emerson College, and they show that my next guest, Steve Hilton, is number two in the polls. Let's welcome from traveling on the road in Los Angeles. Hey, he's running for office. What else do you do? Is Steve Hilton. Steve, good to have you with us.
Great to be with you. Yeah, it's encouraging. I think we're looking good. Obviously, it's pretty early in
Yeah.
one sense for the race, but I'm excited about the support, and it looks like I'm the leading Republican, and we got to have change in California, and that's what I'm fighting for.
You know, you said a lot there in those couple of sentences, Steve. And let me underscore one point. You said it is exciting. It is exciting. I was shocked when I saw the poll numbers because it's California. And top two vote getters, that's where you are right now. Are you concerned at all that other Republican candidates might dilute the final outcome?
Well, that's the risk, of course, with this two-party top two system, which I think is ridiculous, and a lot of people would love to see the back of it in California. But we are where we are. You've got to work with what you've got, and it applies on both sides actually, because you've got a number of Democrat candidates dividing up their vote. I think what you're going to see as we get closer to the primary in June is some amount of consolidation on both sides. And of course, my plan is to continue to be the leading Republican and to build more support so that people can see me as the candidate who's most likely to not just win in the general election next November, which I think is perfectly possible in California. I don't say that it's an easy thing to do,
Yeah.
but this state desperately needs change. There's a majority for change in California, over 60%, very consistently say that the state's going in the wrong direction. And so my job is to show that I'm the candidate that can lead that charge. And then, as governor, do a good job. And there's another thing that I just want to tell you and your audience about me that might be surprising, which is that although people know me from the television, for obvious reasons, like I hosted that show, The Next Revolution on Fox News for many years. Actually, most of my career has been in business, in working in business, starting my own companies, including back in the UK before I moved here with my wife and my two sons in 2012. I've been a small business owner, started restaurants, worked in construction as a project manager. So a lot of my career has been in business. Here in California, I started a tech startup after teaching at Stanford. And then the other part of my experience that I think is perhaps people don't know so much about is that I've also been involved at a high level in government in the UK. I was senior advisor to the Prime Minister, David Cameron, worked in 10 Downing Street there, leading a team that was focused on implementing our reform programs on domestic policy. So I think that's the argument I'm really making, which is that I've got the business experience, the government experience, and the media experience to really do a good job for everyone in California that is desperate to see the end of this one party rule that's been such a disaster for us.
It has been. And Steve, I was not aware that you were involved in politics in the UK until this interview, and I started doing some background. And I'm sure a lot of Fox News viewers will be surprised to hear that as well. And I was not aware of your business background. I mean, that to me, I come from a business background as well,
Yeah.
and it's refreshing.
Well, I think it's a really important point. And the more I think about it, and the more that I'm not just campaigning in terms of, winning votes in the election, I'm also preparing to be the governor and focusing on how we can make changes happen to, cut gas prices, which are the highest in the country. My plan is for $3 gas to cut people's electricity bills, which are the highest in the country apart from Hawaii, because of the insane obsession of the Democrats with expensive, unreliable options like wind power and so on. And so you go through these all these different areas. Home ownership, we have the lowest rate in the country because we have the highest housing costs in the country. So I've got a lot of plans to make home ownership something that is within reach for regular people, a home you can afford. So anyway, as I'm looking at all these things and my plans for doing it, actually what really matters is understanding how government works, how you fight the bureaucracy, and focusing on results and getting things done. And the business experience is central to that. I mean, I go back to my time as a project manager for a construction company. You really have to focus on results there. Otherwise, things don't happen. You have to ask the tough questions. Has that been done? If that task hasn't been completed, this one can't begin. That kind of attitude, that business mindset seems to be completely missing from the people in charge of
Oh,
California right now, where they say things and they announce things and they spend money. Nothing ever happens. That's how you end up in a situation like, what is it, $30 billion or more now spent on homelessness, only for the problem to get worse and worse. It's because you don't have that business mindset at the highest level of our government.
wow. Great point. And as you pointed out, it's just been lacking and missing in California for as long as I'm aware of. What will you do to be able to lower housing prices to make them more affordable to the average California family?
The simple way of putting it is that we have to end the Democrats' war on single family homes. That's the real driver of these high costs. They don't want people to live the way we want to live in California. They see the suburban lifestyle of California, particularly for young families and people who want to and have children and raise them in a way that makes sense in California with our beautiful weather and surroundings. And so that's been the California dream,
Yeah.
building the suburbs. When they see the suburbs, they say they call it sprawl. I call it the California dream. And the reason that everything is so expensive is because every bit of policy, and is particularly driven by their climate ideology. Climate extremism and elitism is what I call it because it's making everything so expensive. Basically, all the different rules and regulations are saying you can't build single family homes, you can't expand outwards. It all has to be what they call infill development, apartment buildings inside where the current development is, no parking. People are supposed to use transit. All these, it's ideological. It's telling people how to live. And it's, of course, if you restrict the development and house building to where it's already developed, that's going to make the land more expensive. You add on top of that the building codes, just the cost of building something in California with all the endless, again, it's driven by the climate ideology. I talk to people in construction the whole time, house builders. They tell me that it costs 4 or 5 times as much to build the exact same floor plan, whether that's a house or an apartment building, whatever it may be, costs 4 or 5 times as much in California as in neighboring states. So all this is deliberate acts of sabotage by the bureaucracy and by the government. And all those rules are things that through the executive branch controlled by the governor, you can roll them back and bring down the cost of building and buying a home.
Do you think there is someone benefiting from those policies, or is it
Yes.
truly ideological?
No, well, it is driven by ideology. It's the climate ideology, which has become so extreme now. And this idea that everyone's going to live in apartments and use transit and whatever, it's ridiculous. It's anti-Californian. And by the way, it's not how they live. Does Gavin Newsom live in an apartment somewhere? Does Nancy Pelosi get around on transit, riding her bike? No, it's just ridiculous. But they want to tell everyone else how to live, but then they don't live like that themselves. And I just think that's so elitist and wrong. So that's where it's coming from. This idea that if you build the kind of single family homes we used to build, that increases carbon emissions. People are driving, and it's more efficient for people to be in, tiny little apartments in one building. But what are you talking about? That's like North Korea. This is California. I want people to live how they want to live, to be who they want to be. Of course, it's true that some people will want to live in apartments, particularly when they're younger, without a family. I lived in an apartment in London years ago before I had a wife and children. That's fine. But forcing everyone to live like that, it's absolutely outrageous.
how is that message being received on the campaign trail? I mean, my 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 I want to believe that it's being received by people regardless of the D or R after
Yes,
the name.
exactly. It's it resonates very strongly. And in particular this way, which is it's a multi-generational thing. Because, I was on the UC Berkeley campus last week, and talking to the students there, young people about, and I asked them, do you see those of them who we met who are from California? I said, you from California? Yes. Do you imagine staying here? Can you imagine buying a home here? They laughed.
Mm,
Of course not. And so for them, it's a tragedy because young people, the future of our state, they're seeing their future elsewhere, whether that's Miami or Nashville or Phoenix or wherever it may be, somewhere where they can build the kind of life that they want, start a family, buy a home, build a business. All of that is so hard in California. So it's a tragedy for the next generation that we're losing. But of course, it's also a tragedy for their parents and their grandparents who look and see their kids moving out of state because they can't make it work in California. So they won't see their kids. They won't see their grandkids as often. And so it's in many ways, I think it's the defining problem of what's gone wrong because, of course, also housing costs, whether that's rent or a mortgage, whatever it may be, is the biggest component of your monthly bills. And so if your housing costs are insanely high, that squeezes your budget elsewhere as well. So of course we've got to get down. I've got, as I said, a plan for $3 gas. That'll make a big difference, especially to working class Californians who are driving. Again, because of the housing crisis, often they have to live miles away from where they work. So they're in their car or truck 2, 3 hours a day. So they're the ones paying the price for that. So we've got to get gas prices down. We've got to get electricity bills down. I'm going to do that through switching away from ridiculous wind and solar subsidies towards affordable, reliable energy powered by natural gas, which we have in abundance in California. So there's all those things we could do on the other elements of why it's so expensive to live in California. Remember, we have the highest poverty rate in the country.
I was not aware of that.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Literally the highest rate. And I just want people to be really clear what I'm saying there. It's not the highest number of people living in poverty. That, of course, that's true because we're the biggest state with the highest population. So when you talk pure numbers, we're always going to be the biggest. The rate, the proportion, the percentage of our population living in poverty is higher than any other state.
So sad.
Just as is another one that's shocking. Right now, today, I mean, this changes every month, but right now, as we're speaking and taping this, California has the highest unemployment rate in America, the highest.
I was
So
not aware of that
it's
either.
none of this is working. And because and it's all driven by these high costs of everything. And again, why do we have such high unemployment? Because companies are leaving or they're deciding not to start up here in the first place. One of the reasons, apart from all the other costs, the energy costs, the taxes, the hassle and bureaucracy of doing anything in California, the housing costs factor into that as well, because your workers can't afford to live in California. And so why would you want to, I hear this all the time. Startups and saying, well, we're just never going to get the people because it's so expensive. So we're going to go to outside the state, Utah. A lot of tech companies gone to Utah
Yeah.
or Florida or Tennessee. And so we're driving away the, the engine of our future opportunity, if you think about it that way. We're driving away businesses and we're driving away the next generation young people in California. It's outrageous and we've got to change it.
And like a lot of my fellow Californians, based upon, referencing what you just said, I know a lot of people that have moved from
Yeah.
Southern California to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And these are
Well, I'll tell
successful.
you, one of the most amazing stories, this is a true story. It's in my book, Califalia, Reversing the Ruin of America's Worst Run State. It's a true story. Orange County firefighter, fed up with the high costs of living, moved his whole family to Nashville or Tennessee, somewhere near Nashville, maybe the suburbs. Certainly it was Tennessee. But he loves his job as a firefighter. So now he commutes. He commutes from Tennessee to Orange County.
Ah,
And somehow that makes sense financially. I mean, this is what we've driven people to. It's so insane.
insane. Steve, I've read recently that you say that you are nonpartisan. Tell us how.
Well, I don't know. That's
Okay.
not exactly how I see it. I'm running as a Republican, and I think we need some political balance in California against this one-party Democrat rule. And
Okay.
so I think what that you may be referring to an interview where I said my message is
Ah,
nonpartisan
okay.
because it's very, and my policies and my plans are not particularly partisan. Everything we've been talking about is something that 80, 90% of people would agree with.
I would
Bring
agree.
down gas prices,
Yeah.
bring down electricity bills, water bills, insurance costs, housing costs. All these things are very practical. They're positive things that everyone can get behind. And that's the focus of my campaigns. That, in that sense, it's nonpartisan, but I'm very clear that I'm running as a Republican and I want to support other Republican candidates and help elect Republicans at every level because that's what we need to do in California to really end this one-party rule. It's become such a disaster, and it always does when you have a party that's in power for too long, and they have it all to themselves. They lose touch with people's
Yeah.
concerns. They get very unaccountable. They get very inward looking. They think they're going to be in power forever, so they do whatever they want. They don't really respond to people's needs. And that's what you're seeing right now with the Democrats in California. So I'm very clear that we need to elect more Republicans, including for governor.
In California right now, they have something called Proposition 50,
Yes.
which they're trying to change the redistricting, and instead of having it done in a neutral way, having elected officials change the redistricting. And what do you have to say about that?
Well, first of all, it's not neutral now. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's supposed to be neutral.
supposed to be.
In 2010, well, there were two ballot initiatives, 2008 and 2010 in California, and one dealt with the state legislature, the other dealt with congressional elections. But for both of them, the people of California voted for an independent process to take the power to draw the electoral districts away from the politicians and to an independent citizens districting commission. That's what happened. But sadly, again, reflecting our one party rule in California up to now, the Democrats hijacked that process.
Yeah.
And so if you look at, and just in very specific ways, for example, the lawyers that the Citizens Independent Districting Commission used to help draw the maps were the DNC lawyers and the Obama Biden campaign lawyers, just so in all these different ways, they actually hijacked the process to make it more favorable to Democrats. So if you look at the representation today in California, this is before Prop 50, just what exists today. If you look at statewide elections in California, it's been very stable for the last 20 years. The Republican share of the vote is around 40%. Depending on different years, different candidates, maybe a little bit above, maybe a little bit below, very close to 40%. So, just in a simple, basic fairness test, do Republicans have 40% or so of the representation in Congress from the House of Representatives from California? No, it's not even half that.
Yeah.
Today, the number is 17%. That's today. If these maps go through that Gavin Newsom is pushing in Prop 50, that, that number will fall to 6%. 40% of the vote, 6% of the seats. It's just completely outrageous. Nobody asked for this special election. Nobody wants it. It's basically something we're going to spend over $250 million on. That's how much it's going to cost. That's how much they're spending on it. Effectively, that's a illegal and corrupt contribution to Gavin Newsom's presidential campaign, because that's the only reason this is happening.
I agree.
Gavin Newsom to push himself as the great, he's going to stick it to Trump
Yeah.
and, help flip the House and take down Trump. That's how he's framing it. It's all
Yeah.
against Trump for his personal benefit. We're paying for it, $250 million. They said there was no money to implement Prop 36, which was the anti-crime proposition that Californians overwhelmingly passed last year. He's refusing to fund it, says there's no money. But suddenly he's found $250 million for this. It's outrageous. And so I'm trying to stop it even happening. I filed a lawsuit in federal court, and now we're moving to the next stage of the process, requesting an injunction and an expedited hearing to stop it even happening because
That's
it's
great.
so clearly unconstitutional. It contravenes a very important principle in the federal Constitution, in the US Constitution, and the California Constitution, the Equal Protection Clause, which states one person, one vote, and that every vote should have equal value, equal weight. And the way you get that is to have districts that are roughly equal in population size. Otherwise, one person's vote is worth more than another's. And you look at the numbers, if this goes through, it will take 193,000 votes to elect a Democrat to Congress, 1.52 million votes to elect a Republican to Congress. A Democrat vote would be worth 8 times a Republican vote. How is that fair? It's obscene. It's a total attack on democratic representation. It silences and disenfranchises millions of people in California. That's why I'm trying to stop it from even happening.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And as you said, there's only 20% representation already, so it's not as if uh, I'm speechless on that one, Steve. Steve, we're about out of time. Just a couple quick messages. You have really impressed me. Uh, I've not had a chance to hear your speeches on the campaign trail. What I heard today, I'm impressed with. Anything I can do to help you with your campaign, let me know.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much.
And there's someone I do want to introduce you to, by the way. Secondly, where can our viewers find more about you?
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. We've got to get the word out. We've got to build this movement for change. So you can join the movement at stevehiltonforgovernor.com, FOR, stevehiltonforgovernor.com. There's a button there that says get involved. We're just starting to get organized with our volunteer army. There's going to be plenty for everyone to do, sharing content, posting on social media, door knocking. It's, as I said, this is something that we can do. We can win in California and turn our state around and make it golden again, but it's not going to be easy. We need everyone to get involved. And so thank you for the opportunity to invite everyone to join our campaign, stevehiltonforgovernor.com.
All right. Go to stevehiltonforgovernor.com, folks. Steve Hilton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Or after this.
Great to be with you.